in a minute, trying to send this to. Okay, so thank you so much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you so much for joining us once again to have a conversation on market systems and see how we can find opportunities and advance the wealth of nations. Aris, just confirm that I'm audible.
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay, so so just share this. Okay, so thank you. So what we'll be doing today is just to look at what we are expecting in 2021, and I have structured it to be a conversation, not necessarily from just within our own community here, but around the whole constructs that somebody may have a better idea. So I will do a quick presentation, and after that quick presentation, then we can move into a conversation. So we have seen what happened in 2020. We saw the massive level of dislocation. We saw how the world was technically brought down by a pandemic. No one had expected something at the level of that magnitude to have happened. We've also seen through real data how the capabilities of nations have changed, how the capabilities of institutions across all dimensions, how those capabilities have changed. You know, this thing started, say, to a large extent in China. But it turns out that if you look around the world, of all the leading economies, China may actually appear to be the least affected. So what happened? Then when you look into United States, you could see despite all the excellence in technological advancement, today America looks like a third world. Should I have people that have even left the United States back to Africa because they are not confident that this pandemic that America has a strategy to overcome it. So it is a new thing. It is a new redesign. Port Harcourt may even be a safer place. Nairobi may be a safer place. And some other nations that many of us may not have even thought about may be a safer place than London and New York City. But that's what it is. And that's what 2020 has given us. So what is going to become the 2021? But in the midst of everything that we have seen in 2020, it's also very critical to understand that in the midst of the paralysis, some people created massive level of value. Some people, I would say, captured massive level of value. Of course, we are not wishing that people should profit from the pains of other people. But that is what is it. That the world was in a state of absolute meltdown. Perhaps millionaires and billionaires were minted within the same period of time. If you look at the Wall Street, you may not even understand if these guys are still trading on this planet or if they have moved to another part of the universe. So I'll begin this conversation by looking at what I call the state of the nation. Looking at what is it that is happening in our world? What is it that is happening in these old constructs of human relationships between demand and supply? Of course, we have already noted that in any economic system that we need to have demand, we need to have supply, because at the end of all things, we are trying to fix problems that companies and humans have in societies. And one mechanism of fixing those frictions, or one mechanism of fixing those problems, is that we have to have companies, because companies make it possible that we can create the only thing that has the ability to solve those needs, to overcome those needs, and that thing is products. Or you can also call it service, because if you have a need, unless somebody has created a product or created a service, you may not have the capacity to overcome that need. So the relationship between the person that creates, the person that buys, the person that now makes it possible that the person that created can now capture value to go and do more things is actually the essence of everything that we do. Pandemic has created a need for us to invest in vaccines because there are people that need vaccines to live. And that created massive level of attention in companies that make vaccines. So this massive dislocation we've seen in the world created a new redesign. And that redesign is changing the structure of market systems. And I would just like to focus on two things because so many of us have participated in our program and we have discussed most of these things at length. I've noticed that the companies that did very well during this pandemic or during the 2020 are companies that have improved significantly their ability to reduce marginal costs as they scale in their business operations. In other words, when you are scaling your operations, when your business is scaling, how is it possible that you can also capture value? So you have the output, which is basically what you're trying to produce for the world. As this output continues to increase, is the cost of producing per unit of your product going to drop? If it continuously goes towards near zero, you will actually be among the companies that did very, very well in 2020. Because the implication of that is that if you can add more customers, if you can serve more customers, you are not necessarily going to see what we typically see in industrial age companies, where it looks like the shape of average fixed cost. So you have companies like Google, you have companies like, to a large extent, nearly all the technology companies that are running on the web, how they have been able to capture value because they are just living in a world where there is no way you can stop them. But now, the companies that if they try to grow, this cost, instead of continuously going close to zero, begins to ramp up, begins to move up. These companies, most of them have not captured a lot of value. Most hospitals that are at the front side of fighting this vaccine, fighting this pandemic, most of them have not captured value. And then you look at the aviation sector, most of them have also struggled. And you just see that besides the logistical challenges many entities have been faced, there are just so many things that have been dislocated. So marginal cost is key. And how do we unlock that marginal cost in business? It turns out that automation and digitization of our business systems is actually one indicator that tells us that we can position our business operations to have this kind of curve. So there is really no way you can experience this kind of mechanism in your business without having an element of digitization. So one thing we are learning in 2020 is that companies that have gone digital, companies that have brought digitization in their playbook, they are now moving away from the old plots that looks like average fixed cost, where as your scale improves, you begin to see your marginal cost start going high. You know, there is no additional cost to a large extent for Facebook to add an additional user. The same thing for Google. And then all these big companies that are operating on the web. And that tells us that if you are not doing what most of them are doing, the implication is that you are actually not going to capture the value of the 21st century. So in all of them, they have developed and deepened their capabilities and executed playbooks that look like this. They have captured significant amount of value. I'll get to that just in the next slide. And capturing that value is that they have been able to serve us, creating new bases of competition, making it possible that they can deliver things at fairly decent price, even when they're giving us a great level of value. And they have done this thing and creating a separation, differentiating themselves from their competitors in a way that we can see a very huge amount of value created. You know, it may be a very free product because we share data, but things that Google is actually doing in our lives is really very huge. And when you look at even entities like maybe in Nigeria, you look at InterSwitch, you see how people don't have to go to the bank to queue because a company pioneered digital payment many, many years ago. And if you go to Kenya, the same thing what M-Pesa is doing. M-Pesa belongs to a category like this. So these are companies that have figured out how they can serve us through digitization process, makes it possible that they have reduced their marginal cost. And that marginal cost comes down to the transaction cost and the distribution cost, where that transaction cost is really the cost of moving that particular product from one place to the other to serve that customer. But because everything is delivered through the web, the implication is that most times that distribution cost is close to near zero. So they have done this thing, creating new bases in our minds, in the way we relate, in the way we work. And they have shaped that, moving us from our needs, moving us to expectation, and to that level of perception. You know, we're just talking about Airbnb. It just raised $100 billion. It's now worth more than $100 billion in New York. And this was a company, if somebody had brought that as a thesis, I brought it as a business plan when these guys were started, I can tell you to a large extent that we would have said it was a very crazy idea. Personally, I would say so. Because how can you tell me to rent an empty room in my house and for somebody to pay me maybe $40 at the end of the day, the next morning? I mean, it didn't just make sense. But interestingly, that is part of the future because software has made it possible that that information asymmetry that existed between demand and supply, the person that has a house to rent, the person that needs the house for 2 nights or 3 nights, that information asymmetry that existed that they did not know themselves to know that if this guy was actually going to be safe, getting into that particular building, that technology has made it possible that we have fixed that problem. So to a large extent, even though you are living in Lagos, you go into Nairobi, you can know more about the particular person who is going to host you. That's one of the things technology has fixed. And the way technology has fixed it comes back to this whole thing of marginal cost, that they didn't need to send in FBI or SSS or security or police or army to go and check that house before you leave Lagos to go to Nairobi. Rather, they use bigs and bytes, making it possible that they can pool enough information in a very, very marginal way that the cost of doing that was nearly absolutely close to zero. So they say, okay, this is this guy's Facebook link, this is this guy's link page, this is this guy's Twitter page, and these are his families, these are his friends. You can see them from Facebook, and say he has a room to rent in Nairobi. And then when you look at the constellation of this person's webinality, the presence on the web, you have so much confidence that you can pay on Airbnb, that when you get to Nairobi, that you can stay in that particular building without any fear that somebody is going to do harm, cause harm in any of your operation in your life. So that's the key part. How can we build products of the future that these software systems can now reduce that marginal cost, that instead of things that used to be getting policemen, getting agents to go and verify if a house was free before somebody could even visit, now technology makes it an absolutely zero cost. That is the reason why they are no more serving you at their needs. They are now taking you beyond your needs to your level of perception. Ability for us to create products and services at that level is actually what is going to be very critical. So we have seen that companies that did that in 2020 separated themselves from others. That in a world where there were many, many bankruptcies, we also had a world where a record IPOs were recorded. The best before over the last 20 years was 20,000. So you could see, but just we are not even at the end of 2020. That means 2020 has done far better than what they had in year 2000. If somebody had told you that in the midst of everything the world had gone through, that the money men and women actually made more money, had more parties, monetary, financially, enjoyed themselves, created more value than the year 20,000 to date. You would not have believed it. But that's what the data shows. So you ask yourself, what is it that they did? What is it that they are doing? Well, how are they capturing this massive level of value, even in a time when the world is experiencing a massive level of dislocation? In America here, so many people lost their jobs, and most may not even have an opportunity of getting that job maybe in the next 6 months. But what is happening in the world are these big companies, these digital native companies, that they don't even behave like if the world, they belong to part of this world. So what is it? And how is that going to be carried on into the year 2021? So if you are in retail, if you are in construction, and indeed in anything that you are doing, the elemental nexus is that our world is in a state of a total redesign. That even if you are making shoes, or if you are in the fashion industry, maybe you are a tailor in Aba or anywhere, and you have not looked into how you can connect into this new world that is evolving, you will just be a sole proprietor. You'll be a one-man business. You'll be a one-woman business, but you will not be an entrepreneur. You know, we have emphasized clearly that there is a huge difference between being an entrepreneur and being a one-man business or a one-woman business. If you go back to most parts of Africa, you see that man, he has been on that particular shop for the last 20 years. He himself and the wife, and maybe the kids, nothing has changed for 20 years. But when you look at entrepreneurs, there is this an elemental construct of scalability where their business is growing. And over time, they are not just adding people, they're also ramping up revenue. So how do we move from becoming small businesses or becoming sole proprietorships or becoming one-man business to the point where we can begin to have an entrepreneurial world? So it's all about that new change and that new redesign. You make that shoe, you wait for somebody to come to Aba to buy it from you. Or you make that bag in Nairobi, you wait for somebody to leave Rwanda to buy it from you. Whereas there is a global market called the internet, and you have not exploited how you can actually make it available so that people can reach out and explore that. The 2020 has shown us something, that the companies that prepare themselves for that future, these are the companies that most likely are also going to dominate 2021. And it's a very critical thing that there is just nothing like I'm not interested in it or I'm not ready for it, because the world will not wait for you. Just like when the world was frozen, a lot of people captured an optimum level of value. So what is it that we need to look at here? So I'm showing this plot, the smiling curve. It's not about us being very, very busy. It's not about us spending significant amounts of time getting ourselves working at 20 hours or 40 hours, whatever. It's about us, where is it that we are working? When you go into your sector, ask yourself, what particular domain are you working? And what particular, I'm trying to delete this here. I don't know. Like what particular points are you working on? So I show you this smiling curve. If you look at the smiling curve, so Arisa, you could help to unmute that. There is a background noise somewhere. Arisa, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just help to unmute.
Sir,
I think it's non-genius.
screen, you can stop. You can stop sharing again for that line too. I've done that. It's not going. I've done that twice now.
Okay, if you cannot do that, you can take him out of and put him on the waiting list, please.
You can stop the screen and then share again for that line out, so I can see the curve properly.
Okay, I have to close it. Okay. Okay. Okay, sorry. Oh, Okay, sorry, just. Oh, great. Okay, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen, just all this technical stuff sometimes. Okay, you can see my screen now. Let's see. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so sorry about that. Okay, so as I was explaining here, that it is not just about you working hard. It's about at what particular positioning do you find yourself? If you look at this curve here, you see that we have the PC industry.
Not the curve.
If you have the CP industry here, so you see these companies, they produce.
Prof, you're not projecting the slides, you're projecting a notepad.
Yeah, you're projecting a notepad, not the curve.
No, I think, oh Lord, what is going on here? I can see the slide here, so you can't see me. You can't see my slide.
No, you're projecting.
No, we can't. We just see the notepad.
Yeah.
What is going on? I've never had this kind of issue before.
You were sharing a window,
Okay.
not your entire
Can you
screen.
see it now?
Yes,
is it visible
yes,
now?
we can see it.
We can see it now. We can see it now.
Okay. And interestingly, I've never seen this kind of problem where Zoom makes it possible that you can draw something on a screen. I mean, I was like,
somebody's trying to hijack it.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. So if you look at this curve here, you could see at the center, you will see the, maybe you can call them companies that actually help to assemble electronics. I have companies like Lenovo, Foxconn. Foxconn is a company that assembles most of the things that Apple makes for the world. You can also put Dell, HP, the printing, the manufacturing part of HP at the center. Then by the side, you see a different type of company. These are companies that operate at the edges. You could now see companies like Accenture, Infosys, Tata. You can also see these are consulting companies or technology consulting companies. They charge significant amount of money to make it possible for all these computing devices that Lenovo and Foxconn and other companies have assembled, that people can now make use of them to drive efficiency in the utilization of factors of production across different industrial sectors around the world. Then you now see companies that make the microprocessors upon which these Lenovo PCs and others run on. The higher value is captured at the edges of this smiling curve. This curve looks like a smiley face. So if you are like this AMD, if you are like Intel, you capture more value than these companies at the bottom. But interestingly, the companies at this center, they are the ones that do most of the hard lifting jobs. They just imagine it. Just ask yourself. You go to Walmart, let's say for instance, if you're in US, you go and buy a laptop. And that laptop, to a large extent, you can get a $199 laptop. Extremely very, very cheap. So these companies, they don't really make much in margin. But when you move to Accenture side, you move to AMD, Intel, you see a very higher level of margin. Then you go to the driverless car side, self-driving autos. Now, if here you see that the typical car companies, Ford, Nissan, they are at the center of the curve. Whereas the companies like Samsung has a microfabrication facility that makes it possible that it can fabricate the most advanced microprocessors in the world. So that means that even though it is not a car company, for some of the latest advances in the area of information, to a broad microelectronics, that Samsung plays a significant role in making them. The Mobile is a company that Intel bought. It's originally an Israeli company. It makes parts that are used in some of these self-driving cars. Of course, you know that Uber is a company that is playing at the level of aggregation. And then Waymo. These companies at the edges are capturing a higher significant level of value that even these companies that are spending all their efforts are doing everything necessary to give us these physical buses called cars. A company like Tesla is a very good example. I didn't put Tesla here, but one thing I want to say here is this, that when you are looking into your 2021, think about a business like Tesla, what Tesla is doing in automobile can influence what you do in your own specific company. Tesla is a software company. Tesla is not necessarily an automobile company. Tesla is the first automobile company in the world, if you can use that, that makes it possible that if you buy a Tesla car, the software license, you cannot inherit it from the person you bought that car. It's just like the same way when you go and buy a Microsoft Windows, that license is not transferable. So what happens here is this, you have to go back and get another license from Tesla if you have just bought a Tesla car from your friend or your neighbor. And also, if you are using Tesla, the interesting thing is that you need to be on a kind of a subscription for latest updates on software to also be available to you. So what am I trying to say here? The point is this, you may see it as a car company, but Tesla is playing a double play strategy. The double play strategy is that Tesla is technically using the playbook of software licensing. And remember, the biggest part of the profit warhead that Tesla makes is in selling credits, all this climate change kind of thing, that because it makes cars that are not polluting the world, the European Union and the European governments and governments around the world, they give Tesla credit. And those credits technically should expire because Tesla cannot eat credits. You know what Tesla does? Tesla goes around to now resell those credits. Fiat paid 1.1 billion euros to buy some credit from Tesla to offset the fines he has to pay for making petrol fuel cars. So when you look at it, you don't see a car at the center of the age, at the middle of the age. You see a company that is operating at the edges of the smiling curve. And that is the double play strategy he plays. And this is actually one of the biggest characteristics of the companies of the future. You are not just going to get into 2021 without asking yourself, where am I in this smiling curve in my industry? That's the question I want every one of us to ask ourselves. In the company where I work or in the business I have started, at what particular level, at what particular age, at what particular positioning do we find ourselves? If you find yourself, for instance, the old Nigerian banks, I mean, the banks have improved, I will explain. Most of them, we are at the middle, at the center of the curve. At the center of the curve, they provided the infrastructure upon which the banking system was being managed. They provided the infrastructure, carrying all the heavy lifting, doing all kinds of things in order to make sure that the banking operations in the nation, everything just moving fine. But they were not capturing a lot of value. They were not capturing a lot of value. And because they were not capturing a lot of value, their numbers are not looking very good. Yes, so you look at it, InterSwitch will charge you a fee. I remember the first time we integrated InterSwitch in 2011 in one of our websites, we sent them a bank draft of equivalent of $1,000. It was a bank draft. So InterSwitch was saying, for my opportunity for me to allow you to actually get online and collect money on your website, you need to send me $1,000 of bank draft. It was a kind of a monopolistic playbook because that was a pioneer. That's nothing bad about it. He needed to charge it because if he could do that. But when he couldn't do that, of course, he waived that fee because there was competition. But so he was capturing value. But if you look at it, he just was staying by the side of the smiling curve. Visa and MasterCard will now pump in their codes, overlaying themselves on African banks around the continent, and they're also capturing a lot of values on their transaction fee. While the banks themselves may not capture a lot of value. So you see at the point of origination and creation, you see what is happening at the edge. Then you come to discovery and aggregation. Paystar gives you a line of code. Flutterwave gives you a line of code. Remita in Nigeria gives a line of code. And in M-Pesa, just like magically, everything begins to happen in their side. No one is even talking about the banks, because the banks, we are at the middle of the smiling curve. And because we are at the middle of the smiling curve, they were not in a position to capture a lot of value. But I would say here that because of this understanding, some banks like GT Bank now created GT Pay. They now started moving away from staying at this place, the middle, to now start moving at this point of discovery. You know, initially when GT Pay was unveiled, it was powered by InterSwitch, but over a period of time, then GT Pay now, GT Bank now changed that InterSwitch that was overlaying on that and now made it 100% GT Bank. But not every bank has had an opportunity of doing that. And that is the reason why when we are talking about moving into 2021 and figuring out how you can capture value, you begin to see the dislocation in what is happening in the banking system. So you give an example. You see a small company that's less than about 5 years old called Paystack that was sold for more than $200 million. Now having a market capitalization that is more than Unity Bank in Nigeria, Wema Bank in Nigeria, and then FCMB. Unity Bank in Nigeria, Wema Bank. So Wema Bank was started in 1940 something. But you see a company that was not more than 5 years capturing more value. So it has nothing to do most times to the efforts. It has to do that even the level or the positioning where you find yourself in your industry can actually determine how far you can go. And the key point is, as we move into 2021, I want you to ask, where am I playing? Am I at the middle or am I at the edges? If you are not anyhow at the edges, find a way to have a double play strategy that can move you out of this center so that you can capture more value at the edges of the curve. And then as you do that, we need to look at the drivers of growth. What are these things that are going to drive this growth that we are talking about in 2021? It comes down to knowledge. We have to find a mechanism that we have to acquire new sources of knowledge. Knowledge is a very critical thing. In short, if you go back to the Bible said that when Moses appeared before the Israelites, they marveled because he has studied under the Pharaohs. The implication was that the best possible university system, or whatever it was called in, was found in Egypt. Egypt was nothing but the best place where knowledge was actually being created, knowledge was actually being disseminated, and knowledge was actually being scaled. So if Moses has studied under Pharaoh, it means that he had the best university system in the world then. And he came to his kinsmen. They gave him a lot of respect because he came with knowledge. And it has always been like that in human history. The nations that create knowledge, companies that create knowledge, companies that can now apply that knowledge have always created leverageable factors that help them to advance the welfare of that company, the welfare of that nation, and advance the welfare of the citizens. So we have to ask ourselves, how do we capture knowledge? How do we come up with new knowledge? You need to look at your industry and say, what is it that is coming on new? Because innovators of nations are actually the messengers of new knowledge. Because you cannot innovate if you do not have new knowledge. And if you cannot create new knowledge, there's just no way it can happen. If you go back to the Library of Alexandria, it was the finest libraries ever in the history of humanity when it was lost. And you go to the House of Wisdom, who is the father of algebra, Al-Khaziwai. He was the man that was the curator of the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, in the old Babylon. So when this man was ruling, he helped the world to pioneer the new knowledge base we call algebra. And the word algorithm actually came from his Islamic name, Al-Khaziri. So people call it algorithm. So that's to tell you that at that time, going on to the old time of Nebuchadnezzar, if you have followed all the history books, you see that there was a massive level of knowledge being created. And because of that massive knowledge, it dominated the world. It has always been consistent like that, that today, America creates some of the finest knowledge bases across most domains, and that's why America is a superpower. And as China is also pushing knowledge at scale, China is actually rising as a great superpower, as a great nation. In short, China has already started testing 6G in some cases. And China is already a pioneer in most domains of artificial intelligence. China is also pushing the limits of robotics. That means that if China continues to boost that knowledge capacity, the wealth will actually follow through. So for us, there is just no alternative. Is how do we create that knowledge? And then, of course, if you have the knowledge and you cannot apply it, it certainly does not do you any favor. That means that having that entrepreneurial capitalism, how do we connect that knowledge to market systems? How do we connect that knowledge to having products and services? Because only products and services can fix frictions and resist in the market. So that's where it happens. You have this guy, he understands business, but you have this guy, he's a technical genius. How do you come together to have a fusion to now go into the marketplace and begin to make things happen? If you check very well, guys that graduated 1% in their class are not the richest people in your community. There is a reason for that. There is a different skill for finishing top of your class to finding sources in market. It doesn't mean that the smart guys cannot start companies. Just like the skills are different. So if you are humble to that extent, you will not know when you need help. The richest men in the world, I'm not sure any of them will tell you that they were top of their class. But the point is this, they have a skill, awareness, observation, to know what customers want and know how to deliver those things to customers. And if they can do those things, great things happen. But sometimes they understand what needs to be done, but they don't know how to do those things. That's where connecting to that knowledge becomes critical. Capital will remain a key factor. We need to find a mechanism in 2021, how that capital, that we cannot just be inventive, having all the ideas without the mechanism of taking it to products and services. My point is this, as I have stated in our program, that if that product is not a product, if that idea is not yet a product, you can't use the word innovative on it. Because innovation is equals to invention plus commercialized. It has to be commercialized. Markets have to test the hypothesis upon which you have conceptualized the whole idea. If the market has not validated it, you cannot call it innovative. So we need to say in 2021, how do I get that capital to turn the idea that has come through knowledge and the team I have brought together through this capitalism so that we can transform that idea into products and services? And if you do that, capital comes. Of course, it's not every idea, it's not every knowledge, it's not everything that you have in-house. You go for that thing called labor. Labor means extremely brilliant people are waiting and you can give them opportunity to join the party. The party means here is that giving people opportunity to come and work in that company. That is really the whole formation of farms. If you do that, making products and services that at the end of the day, customer can find more value in the total input that you have put in making it so that you get what they call a little margin. That becomes your profit because you have been compensated for turning raw material, creating a finished product, people find value, buy it, and then the difference between what you have put in and what they have paid you becomes up. And if you can scale it, then good things begin to happen. So we are going to see new vistas, but I also want to say here, just going through what are just 4 things that I want us to pay attention. You know, I was just thinking about it. Think about it. If you are an aviation company, if you're in the airline industry, is it time for people to just buy travel subscriptions since you cannot guarantee that people are going to fly in Lagos or Nairobi? So you just said, okay, I'm Eric. You can just come and pay 1 million. That's a subscription for the year. You can fly from Abuja to Lagos I mean, if you do that, there are people, especially some of these celebrities that may say, okay, hey, I do fly a lot. Let me just give this company 1 million naira, and that's for my local travel for the whole year. And if that company captures subscription, I tell you from my own hypothesis here that the valuation can actually improve because people will say that this is now a verifiable, a predictable revenue source than waiting for that person to buy 50,000 or 100,000 anytime that person travels. Also see that money and finance, the way young people will handle it, is going to be a very, very big issue. I just expect the way even our banking system in Africa, the way everything, because there are a lot of massive level of shift to satisfy young people. You know, they are not just giving up They are the ones that will tell you how they feel. You know, even in a Tekedia mini MBA, they told me, hey, Prof, you cannot make your website. You have to make a dedicated website for us. Other people will just say, we can manage. But young people write you, oh, I don't like this. You just have to be. So I want you to pay attention to them. They are running the world in their own way. Pay attention because they are very, very bold. They don't hold. You need to have, I mean, I was just speaking with a client this morning. I say, get a young person, talk to a young person, because they are the ones that will tell you how they feel, because that's the world they have been raised in. Unlike somebody may not like to make you feel good or feel bad, you can now massage the communicate, say, yes, I don't like this. I'm struggling registering. They will tell you the way they feel. Yeah, so that is it. So pay attention. If you're in the business of money or finance or the whole construct, find a way that young people will drive so many things. And if you see some of the companies that are doing very well in the world, they are not really going for really old people. I'm telling you, they have found a way to make young people to believe there is an aspirational vision in the world. There is an aspirational thing to live for. There's a stockbroker, digital stockbroker called Robinhood in US, where people can trade stock and other things. It's really amazing how this company has captured so much value by actually largely serving young people. It's nearly bigger than all the other stockbrokers to a large extent, if you focus on the stock brokerage only. So that's the opportunity. And of course, digital commerce. But when we say digital commerce, I'm not talking about the typical e-commerce. Everyone here, I believe, no matter what you do, must find a playbook that your services must have something to do with the web. It is a very critical thing that when you are sleeping, people can pay for your services. And when you wake up, you can see payment transactions coming in. If you have not done that in your company or where you work, tell the boss that 2021 cannot go without us getting it right. You know, one of the most exciting things I like, let's just using Tekedia mini MJ, is that when we go to sleep and when we wake up, wake up in the morning, we see there are transactions, and that's revenue. That thing would not have been possible if we did not have that self-auto checkout, where we use Flutterwave and Paystack. Sorry, Flutterwave and PayPal. I mean, everyone can do the same thing. Interestingly, it doesn't even cost anything. So you could talk to Flutterwave and say, Flutterwave, come and help me implement this thing. I'm selling women's wig, but I don't want to just allow 7, 8, or 9 hours of my sleep to freeze the ability for people to pay me. What would they do? They can even give you a web page. They can even give you, you can integrate it in anything. And once you do that, somebody in America wants to buy that wig, I can pay you when you wake up, you see revenue come. It is a very key part of that 2021. Don't think that pursuing the customers, pushing all when you are awake is the only way. There is a way, even when you are sleeping, that revenue can go. And then the final one I want to make here is that we need to think about everything we do, a Chinese impact. You know, this country called China is going to have a very huge impact in our lives in 2021. You know, it's not a question of talking politics here. It's just a question of the total redesign, how this world is changing. Just look at what is happening now in Ibadan, the train station in Nigeria. Look at what is happening in Kenya. Look at what is happening in Gabon. Look at, if you can just see that at the end of the day, there is this kind of a convergence that Africa and China, there's a higher level of integration, and this it's just like all of them are folding. So even if you come to the United States, you see, the more America tries to improve its balance of trade with China, the more America is having more trade deficits. In short, even when President Trump came, he boasted that he was going to reduce it. Under his watch, the thing is even doing what? Getting out of hand. So he's running more deficit than even when Obama was there. Why? Because you can't just change certain things. So that is the country that we believe is going to run this century. And we have to think anything we are doing, how will it be, or how will it also be affected by China? So this is going to be the summary of what I'm going to pass across here. The world is going to see the anchors of tomorrow and the anchors of 2021. We see remote everything, remote work, remote school, remote clinic, remote sales, remote project management. How are you preparing in your own personal functional area to be ready for this? If you cannot do that remote something, are you going to be impaired in your service? If you cannot do remote sales, if you cannot do remote school, how is it going to affect your capability to advance? If you are running a clinic, how are you going to be ready for the future of telemedicine? Then as we do that, I've mentioned already digitization and cloud migration. You need to have a means that a part of your business is available even when you are not in business in full time. You are sleeping, people have to pay. And then look at, are there things that have to be automated? One of the solutions I use in my email is that when I wake up in the morning, there is an artificial AI system that looks at the email and tells me things that are important. It was actually delivered, I think it's a Microsoft product because it was the university that offered it to me. I mean, the university makes it possible. It looks at your email and say, these are the things to watch. And this thing has gotten so well every week that I now begin to wonder, what is going on here in this world? How can somebody have software that will read my email and tell me the things that are important? And increasingly, what is reminding me to do are actually the things I actually wanted to do. So maybe it looks at the people when they send me email, I open them immediately and read them or respond or spend more time on it. And then it looks at the ones maybe I don't. At the end of the day, it knows really what matters to me. So that is semi-automation. Look at chatbots. How can it is that you can reach these customers even when you are not actively engaged? We have to think, because these are things that are going to shape in 2021. Then the most important part is supply chain. Supply chain is now talking about not just the digital companies, because we are not here just for talking about technology companies. We have companies that are in real estate, companies in construction, companies in agriculture. You know, we have built supply chain systems. People built it dependent on China. But now we saw that during the pandemic, the world was cut out. And because of that, companies had so many paralysis. We went into the 2020 when the just-in-time management, I can only order that item only when I needed it so that I don't have to carry any costs in my warehouse. You know, that was what they taught us in management schools. That was what they taught us in business school, that there is no need for you to even have a warehouse because everything could be just in time. When the customer places the order, you produce it and ship to the customer. We don't have to store anything. When you need a raw material, you order it, you don't have to keep any raw material in stock. But it turns out that those things can save you marginal value. But if they fail, you now run into severe dislocation in your business. There was a company in Germany during the pandemic. It had 99% of all the raw materials, but it needed one chemical from China, and the ports were closed. And because of that small chemical, that company had to basically freeze production because it couldn't receive that chemical. Imagine if that company has stocked maybe 3 months of inventory. Of course, that was cost. Accountants will tell you don't do that. But what I'm trying to say that in a world that has become exceedingly unpredictable, we're looking at how flooding, excessive heat can actually change the trajectory going forward. You know, you just see places getting flooded, people getting into massive level of heat in India. It may be time for you to ask yourself, is there a possibility that this company that's in India cannot serve me for 5 weeks? So do I need to have this raw material in case that happens? We need to think about these things because the post-COVID world has actually, the COVID world has prepared us and gave us an experimentation process that we would have not anticipated in real time. So now the things that we have learned, I think these are going to become the very basic business frameworks that we are going to implement in our lives. So as I just round up here, unleashing the opportunities of 2021, I still believe that these are going to become the very critical elements people have to say. Agriculture is an opportunity, but unfortunately, making money in agriculture remains exceedingly very hard in Africa because we are still not there in terms of how do we drive it at scale to actually make it a business that gives us a very good margin. So healthcare is also there, but there is also that case that people may not have the money to pay. So at the end of the day, it's about how do you do this thing within that smiling curve so that you stay in a place where you can capture value. Education, I tell you, is actually a very huge latent opportunity. I'm increasingly seeing a scenario where It's not about the degrees that matter now. It's actually about the capabilities that you have. It's about what is it that you know, because companies are looking for people to solve their problems. They're not looking for people to come to their offices and put certificates and put on the wall. So if you have that mindset, the implication of that is that how we are going to be educated in future is certainly going to be different how we have been doing that, especially in Africa. If you are running a business in that playbook or having customers in that playbook, you need to now help them change the architecture of the educational process, because you want to see how you can capture massive level of value. So, of course, I've mentioned extensively there is a huge opportunity in the real estate sector, but that real estate sector opportunity can come only when people begin to tag, digitize the operations of real estate. In short, when you look at Airbnb, I mentioned it earlier, and you see the real estate sector, there is a very massive level that somebody can do rent not in 2 years. You know, I find it extremely difficult that Nigeria, one has to pay, is it 10%, another 10%, and then you pay 2 years. And then this is a place where there is no credit, but landlords will expect you to pay 2 years ahead. And how do you expect a young entrepreneur who doesn't even have anything to have that level of capital in order to even start? But that's what the society has offered. But imagine a scenario where if there is a startup company in the real estate sector, you go and pay that money and now make it possible that innovators can come. Instead of paying for 2 years, they can now pay for 3 months or 2 months. So I believe that technology can fix and remove those frictions that make it possible that you can unlock more value, just the way software has also unlocked value for Americans in the Airbnb. And as we do that, it comes down to the elements of growth. You need the firmware. I'm going electrical engineering here. These are the basic software that actually puts in the microprocessor. And when you are boot your laptop, the first set of lines or software you see is what they call the firmware. Firmware is coded by the electrical engineer who wants to make it possible that the microprocessor could be understood by the operating system. So you build this mnemonic system, very cool machine language thing, and then that's the knowledge, that is the talent. That is a talent for the world. Then once that firmware books, it hands over to the operating system. That operating system here is like your Windows, your Linux, or your Android, or your iOS. That is now where I want us to think about what is the new basis you want to offer. If you can offer that new basis, you now release opportunities in the utility apps. There could be issue opportunity in finance, opportunity in logistics, opportunity in e-commerce, agriculture. These things are available. But the most important point is figuring out that 2021 is going to continue that trajectory, that the companies that will capture the highest level of value will play at the edges of the smiling curve. And if they are creating at the edges of the they have to make sure their marginal cost continues to improve. If your marginal cost does not improve very, very well, the implication is that markets are not necessarily going to reward you. It's not a question of being big. It's a question of efficiency in the utilization of factors of production, because that's what you need to build a category king company that will not just run, but also transform the society when it works. And he goes back to that Greek, one of the finest philosophers ever lived. That's a guy called Pythagoras. In his seminal paper, he gave us the Pythagoras theorem that in a right angle triangle, that if you take the individual squares of the opposite and adjacent, you sum them together, you get a square hypotenuse. Pythagoras made it clear that for him, the world is nothing but numbers, that everything that we see in our society can be put in a numerical form. From the time you look at how said world water, look at Heraclitus say world was fire. But Pythagoras said it's nothing but numbers. My point is this: you need to make your company numbers. You need to make your career numbers. It's only when you have them in numbers, that's when you begin to understand what is working and what is not working. If it's not working, you need to adjust it. We got an email from Google last week. There were some suggestions they wanted us to make on our website in terms of having a very big imagery. They want you to have the largest pixels in images. So they took us in one of their surveys and asked us to participate. So when we saw that, we said, okay, if we have the highest resolution image on Tekedia, most of our members, when they now visit to click a page, to take a very long time for that to download. And if they realize that it takes long time for that image because the pixels are very high resolution, the image is high resolution, it's not just costing them money, it's also going to affect their own imagination that this is can load very fast. After all, we actually host an AWS, which is a fairly decent platform to host things. So our site is very, very fast, but using extremely high image could cause problems. So we said, we understand that this study thinking about America, but this is also our own perspective, because this is what our data shows, that when we reduce the resolution not to the highest, we actually get more people spending time on the site than when the image looks so beautiful and big, they don't spend more time, because any page they click is costing them money, and most people are very sensitive to that. You know what? The lady said, wow, I've not seen it that way. I said, that's what it takes, because our audience, even though we have some people coming from Western world, and most of them are coming from Africa. So my point is this: if you cannot measure it, you cannot know what matters. So for the 2021, now is the time to develop a protocol on how you can measure what matters so that you can improve what matters. And if you can improve what matters, that wealth of nations, that wealth of companies, that wealth of individuals, or anything will come to you. So thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us for this conversation. So I will now open it up for us to go straight into the question and answer section. So we have Samuel Udemy. Please go ahead, unmute yourself. Samuel, go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay, Samuel, are you there?
Okay, I have to. Yeah,
okay.
Yes, sorry.
You have to
I had
unmute him
to
first.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So, you can unmute yourself now. So anyone can unmute themselves now.
Hello.
So avoid earlier.
Hello, good evening,
Okay.
Prof. Thank you
Yes, good evening,
so
Samuel.
much, sir, for the presentation. Yes, sir. So the question I want to ask is based on one of your slides. That is the part that has to do with the acceleration of the edges. Please, can you hear me very well?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. There is this one of your slides that talked about the acceleration of the edges. That's the smiling curve. I don't know if those two extreme edges, I don't know if it be possible for us to get this slide later, or maybe at this point I may be able to figure out the one after this.
Okay, you get the slide
one.
actually. You should.
Yes, this particular one. This particular one.
Yeah, you get it. Actually, we'll post it on the we'll post it on Tekedia live page there. We'll post it.
Okay. So the question I want to ask is, please, can you deliberate a little more on these two extremes, not the middle one, the origination and creation and discovery and aggregation? What's the beauty of not being in the middle or being at those extremes?
Oh, okay. Okay. So let me get back a little bit on this by saying that it's really, which of our edition did you attend? Was it edition 2 or 3?
Yeah, I was on 3. I was on 2.
Okay, 2. Okay, that should be a very big mix for me that maybe I didn't explain it. Sorry about that. So what happened here is this, that if you look at by the right side of the curve, you will see aggregation. And if you go back to aggregation constructs, we noted it there that most times the companies that are in aggregation are not usually the ones that create the raw material. So what they are doing here is helping you to aggregate things. And because they are mainly in the business of aggregation, aggregation means, like, just think about it. Google is an aggregator for news, and look at all these Flutterwave and Paystack. They are just they send one code, and that code can be replicated across for people to collect payment and remitter. They don't spend as much as those at the middle. They don't have to build branch networks. They don't have to hire so many people. They don't have to get into so many things like typical banking, but they just see themselves, attach themselves at what particular point, helping to aggregate the customer layer. And doing that aggregation of customer layer in the digital space means that their cost model is very, very efficient. So go back to your lecture note on aggregation constructs. You get a better insight what is happening. So what is really happening here is that this company's marginal cost is very good, because the cost of adding an additional customer is, for them, is really very, very low, because the business they do, they don't have to have branches, they don't have to get involved in so many things. So I don't know if I'm explaining it well. So that's it. But unlike the ones at the center, yeah, they may need to serve somebody in my village in Abia State. They will be thinking, how do we open a branch? But Flutterwave doesn't have to worry. Paystack doesn't have to worry. Remitter doesn't have to worry, because they are feeding on top of infrastructure that these companies have already built. And because they are focusing on aggregation and discovery, their cost competitiveness is world-class.
Yeah, that's clear, Prof. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Okay, great. So, Patrick, we saw your name, your resume thing. You can unmute yourself, Patrick. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. Once again, I want to really appreciate you, Prof, for all your effort in trying to bring us up to speed in learning and also improving our systems. I want to discuss this issue of China, because you know that from the 1st of January, Nigeria and the rest of African countries will start after this free trade area. Now, what would be the primary interest? Is it to structure ourselves to compete globally, or structure ourselves in near term to be able to leverage and gain a market access to the African countries that are majorly closer to us? Or we should just be having a general overview, thinking about world markets, but first of all, leveraging on the African. I just wanted you to clear that one up a bit. And also, I'm looking at unleashing the opportunities, the sectors that were mentioned. And I'm thinking that should the emphasis be on everybody having a gateway to digital economy, or maybe there are some that will play on the below the smiling curve, so to speak, in order, especially the raw material producers. It's not every. Perhaps maybe I should hold back the question, because it can actually be.
No, you actually asked the question, and let me answer that one first before the Chinese and after. The point is, remember the point. If you look at that Tesla is building cars. I think I spent time on Tesla. It's building cars. But Tesla has overlaid a double play on building cars. If you are in mining, I'm asking you, you could be at the center in the mining business, but find a double play at the edge. You get the point? Yeah. So we're not saying that we should leave the middle. If you leave the middle, the society will not work, because somebody needs to build infrastructure in order to make sure that we power the society. So somebody needs to build a bank. Somebody needs to run the bank. But what we are saying is, if you are in our community here in Tekedia, I want to say you don't just stay at the bank. Also go at that age, so that in as much as you are building the infrastructure, you're also capturing part of the value. Tesla builds cars. Tesla captures value. Airbnb, some of the Airbnb customers, they are real estate companies. They go and buy land, build houses, but they don't just stay at building houses. They go at the edges and do aggregation. And now, so if you are in mining, one of the biggest problems in mining, for example, is information asymmetry. You know so much, Mr. Patrick. I am in New York. I don't know so much about that place. Is there any other way you can overlay technology to remove that material information I don't have and the one you have about me, so that both of us can come into an equilibrium point? So if you can use technology to do that, you will prove that ability for demand and supply to come into an equilibrium. It's exactly what Mr. Odemo was asking here. Explain what is happening by the edge. What is really happening at the edge is that these guys, some of them overlay themselves at the center, removing that information asymmetry so that people will have more trust and confidence in it. So that's the point. We need to build infrastructure. There's no debate. But I also want you to build it and make money, because otherwise there will not be a need for us to have a process for us to educate and communicate. You know, my own philosophy here is that anything you want to start doing and you can't find how to capture value, you just have to think about. I mean, there's an article that I'm going out in Harvard maybe in 2 weeks' time. I focus on capturing value because, to be honest with you, I was stunned how these American companies are declaring billions in a time when companies are declaring bankruptcies every day. I mean, how can it happen? People are losing jobs, losing their homes, and yet some people are turning millions every day. We need to know what they do and discuss it. That's the point I'm doing. So the first one on after, I must say, is a very sensitive thing, because the whole construct from Africa was we want to be a larger market. And to be honest with you, that is actually a very pure desire. I want to see a bigger African market where I don't talk about Nigeria, I talk about Africa. Let it be more integrated so that we can sell things, we can buy things, and to reduce all these frictions across borders. You know, the other day I mentioned if I was to travel to Gabon, you have to go to France before you come back to Gabon. There are just so many things that happen in currency. Somebody's in Tanzania has been struggling to pay us here, and it's been very difficult. So, but if there is any way we can break these barriers, I think it will be very, very good. But however, the problem is that as you are making it easy for us to trade among ourselves in Africa, the other players are not just going to wait. So we are seeing that most car companies now are located in Ghana. Yeah, in China, most of them are opening plants. And what they want to do now is to serve West Africa from Ghana, because Ghana has better infrastructure than Nigeria. And unlike in the past, when Nigerian custom will charge them import duties for sending those things from Ghana, from China, if they are coming from Ghana, there is a possibility that Nigeria may not capture that fee under AFTA. So there are many, many things that are involved. I did not originally support this. I said that the Nigerian government has to ensure what they call the rule of origin clause. The rule of origin clause is like, even if you have made the car, assembled the car in Ghana, it cannot be called a Ghanaian product, because most of the raw materials were not actually produced in Ghana. Maybe they were just assembled. So if there was any tax that was imposed because it was made in China, even though it was assembled in Ghana, you still have to impose that tax to make sure that people don't come to Ghana in order to serve Nigeria, thereby deny Nigeria that import revenue that it gets from the fee. So I think the experts know what to do. The issue here is whether they will be very bold without our typical demon of corruption to actually follow what the laws. The laws have been written, I think it's just for us to follow it. So more questions here. I think, Olumide, you raised your hand up in the past. Do you still have a question?
Prof, I don't know if I need to conclude on one other point.
Okay, go ahead. Since we don't have any hand raised up here, go ahead.
Right. I had a meeting with Nigerian Stock Exchange, because they saw, I don't know, somebody mentioned me to them, and they contacted me, and there were some products that they thought that could be interesting for our company. Obviously, we want to go public, but we don't want to go public yet at this stage, because it's still very, very premature. Like you just mentioned, data asymmetric. At this stage where we are, we've spent so much money in acquiring most of the data we have, until we come to a level where we can start getting close to category, not even king, but category prince, so that somebody doesn't pick those data that we paid a lot of money and time to generate, to just corner the market. So what do you suggest? Because I'm thinking that we need at least another 2 more years to build tremendous capacity. At that point, we then can have a choice. Do we need to list in Nigerian Stock Exchange, or come to Europe or even United States and do better tickets? What do you suggest?
Okay, that's noted. That's noted. Okay, so do we still have more questions? And I think most people are actually on Google. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Can I go? Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Frank.
Okay. My question is, earlier you talked about how to move from one man or one woman band to get to entrepreneurial level. My question is, how would you advise us to do that? Especially we are in a consultancy business. How do we move from that kind of middle? I can see where you talk about the delivery bit to get to the edge where you can capture most of the value and get to the next level.
Yeah, thank you so much. And of course, the business of consulting, it depends on the specific type. If it's a human resource consulting, or if it's a technology consulting, or I think most of them, they do really have different characteristics. But
just
generally,
business consulting in general, yes.
Okay, business consulting in general. So I believe vividly, to a large extent, it depends on the capabilities. When I use the word capabilities here, I really mean the specific things that organization offers. If it's something that you could move from, I divided it into 2, upstream and downstream. Downstream means offering things largely everyone can offer. I mean, there is no major differentiation from your offering to what the other competitors in the market, what they're offering. It may be a little very challenging to create that separation that will bring scale. But if that business consulting offers a highly clear, differentiated product that delivers at a very far premium than what the competitor has, then one can now build on that to drive what I'll call scalable advantage. That scalable advantage means here is that, okay, the product is very, very great. And if the product is very, very great, usually the customers like to respond to that. Because there's something inherent in consulting. You are not necessarily the person in charge of most things. Clients have to engage you. And then when clients engage, you have to serve them. And to a large extent, you run a business of where the marginal cost means as you are getting more clients, you have to hire more people and you have to engage more experts to deal with those companies. So you cannot mass produce your supply. Because you cannot mass produce your supply, you are bounded by that marginal cost. So let me use medicine to explain it. A doctor has to deal with a patient one at a time to a large extent. And that's the reason why medicine itself is not a very great business playbook, because a doctor has 24 hours in a day. So if he can meet maybe one patient every 30 minutes, that means he has a maximum number of demand he can serve. Irrespective of whether there are 1,000 people waiting or there are 20,000 people, the doctor is bounded by time. And because he's bounded by time, if he's paid maybe 1 hour per $1,000, there is maximum amount of money the doctor can make in a day or in a year. So he's not going to be a super rich guy because he can mass produce his supply in order to meet new demand that is available in the market. But if it's a different person who is making, let's say, water, pure water, demand has increased. And because demand has increased, he can improve supply overnight by adding more shifts so that he can produce that product. So he has a cost positioning that he can actually make more money because he can produce supply. So in business consulting, most times you have to show human bodies, you have to send the experts to the company, you have to look at what they do. You cannot mass produce easily because you are limited yeah, you are limited by the human beings that you have to use. But one thing that separates to move from that lower level downstream to the upstream is now the level of quality. Just look at the transitioning from the, I don't know if I will suggest you read how McKinsey, the early years of McKinsey, you know, the guy that started it, you know, how the man focused on, hey, we're having a background noise here. So, please, so how when the man started it, he said, okay, if I pick this job, I'm just going to make sure I deliver the best possible quality possible. And if I do that, I'll deliver the best possible quality. And as I deliver the best quality, I'm going to hire the smartest human being I can come across in life. And as he was doing that, then he was now charging margins that even his competitors could not. By now charging the margins, he created a virtuous cycle of he hired the best possible people, he had the best possible client, he makes the best possible margin, and just like that, McKinsey is number one. So, but if he was not focusing on separating himself from everyone, he will be commoditized. And when he's commoditized, the world comes, world goes. The moving from that subsistence small level to the higher one becomes a little bit difficult. And then finally, there is also this consistency that I want to be big from day one. And how it depends on that business consulting service. How do you want to run it? Somebody could say, I want to run an educational program. I want to open one office in Lagos and just serve people in that office. There may be 10 people that come for training in a month, and I'm fine with it. Another person will say, I'm not going to open an office. I want to train online so that I can train thousands instead of training. So in that case, the quality has not played a role. Rather, it is your mindset of the playbook you want to play. So in business consulting services, one can also say, I want to build a business online that I can have aggregators in each community or each major city. But my job is now using the leverages I have to bring these customers. I can now ask local partners to help me do that. So I would say you have to define, even in some cases, how you can become that big, not necessarily just based on your competencies, but also the business model that you also want to run.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Blegan. So do you have more questions here? And Ariza, we can also check. I think we have some at offline there in the front. So we just have about 21 more minutes and then we'll be round up. Do you have any more question?
Okay, I don't have anyone here.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Boyo, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Boyo.
Oh, great. Thank you, Prof. Good day, everyone. Thanks, Prof, for your presentation. It's been amazing and insightful at the same time. I wanted to talk about, ask a question about capturing value in the education sector. And one of the problems we have here in Africa is that the government has not yet created a policy framework for effective delivery of online learning, which is part of the areas where individuals could capture value in that sector. Do you see that hampering the growth of businesses in that area? Do you see it causing a friction as to entrepreneurs building something that will be valuable and impactful in the society, knowing that the government has not fully built a policy framework for us?
Yeah, I must confess, it's not everything that I believe that government should actually have a policy framework. I just believe that entrepreneurs just have to take a little more risk and go and try things and see how they fail or how they strive. So there is really nothing else I think government needs to do, except that we need to have the infrastructure. I'm very confident that if anybody has a very good product to go to King's College, Lagos, and say, okay, students, instead of being at home because of pandemic, we can deliver this course at a high level of quality online. Government will be open to that. But the problem here is that no one can easily do that because we don't have the infrastructure to a large extent. You don't want to start educating Femi Tedola's daughter or son and just make that one up, or just Kano or Buhari's grandchildren. You want to educate everyone, because one of the ones that don't have computers, they don't have network. Does it mean that the teacher will give them zero because where they are living, their parents cannot afford a laptop or iPad for them? So I think if we are waiting for policy to address that, unfortunately, the policy will not address that. It means that market systems have to address that. And that means, how do you maybe offer that child a laptop to use every 3 hours in a day? The mother can afford $20 to pay you or $10 to pay you. You know, there are ways we can innovate. I'm not trying to just lecture here because these things are hard, because, I mean, if it's easy, everyone will do it. But if we look at it from the angle that it's a village, there are 20 kids, they're at home, the school doesn't have laptop. There could also have been an opportunity somebody to rent the laptop, if it's possible. So there is no policy that is needed for that. What I think we need is market innovation. And if we have that market innovation, then it becomes easy. But where I think policy is needed is having that data to actually know how many kids that need this opportunity, so that you yourself, who is a business person, can begin to plan. So when the government doesn't even know the citizens, and government may not even tell you how many or where they are, it makes that business model creation very, very challenging.
Yeah.
It makes the city very challenging. And that's, I think, what the problem. Like in US here, to a large extent, government knows that within 5 meters radius of a school, in public schools, for instance, that's where the kids live or whatever. I don't know what they use them. I don't know the exact mile, but I'm told that the school buses go around a certain mileage for kids that attend public schools. So if you know that, you can now send a question here: do you need a laptop? Do you need this? If you say no, the local library will supply those keys to use, and after that, the local library will retrieve it. Because there's one big man or one rich man who has donated 1,000 laptops for kids. So it's easy like that. But the man has donated that 1,000 laptop because he is going to get a tax credit for donating 1,000 laptops. That means his tax, he can deduct it from a tax, and by deducting it from tax, the man can actually save more money for donating that 1,000 item. That's the way the tax system works. You can become better by giving money out, because the tax system works on percentages, and it's a simple mathematics. So, but we don't have that in Nigeria. And that makes it very difficult, because if you donate that 1,000, you're actually having a pure expense, no deductible. But I don't know if you understand me here, but I'm saying that the policy may not really help us. We just need a market solution.
Yes.
And if we give out the market solution, I am confident that, especially in major cities in Nigeria, that parents are ready. The biggest and the richest and the most valued startup in India today is Byju's.
Yes.
Byju's is, I think it's byjus.com. Byju's is worth about $10.4 billion in market cap. It raised from Tiger Management about $500 million roughly a few weeks ago. So what does this company, what does it do? It trains kids from either 3 years to 8 years. That's it.
Oh.
Yeah, Byju's. So what 4 to 18 years. Okay, they have extended it to 4 to 18 years. That means they handle from, let me say, just getting into primary school, pre-K to somebody going into university. It is worth 10-point-something billion. And that is, what do they do? Online training. And what they have noticed in India, that every mother, every father wants to run that subscription, so that the child can, besides the public school, can also have somebody to train them. And that's a very big. Go ahead, you want to say something?
Thank you, Prof.
Okay, great. Okay, so Emanuela, please go ahead.
Emanuela.
Okay.
Yes, please. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Good day, Prof, and good evening, everyone. I'm sorry if it appears that my question might take us back a little bit. I joined in a bit late on YouTube, and I met where you were showing a graph the graph that has interswitch, the originators, the bank in the deep in the middle, and then the aggregators, which is Paystack and the rest of them. So I'm not sure if you've answered what I'm about to ask, but I thought to ask all the same. Knowing that banks are heavily regulated and that banks are required for financial institutions are very important for an economy like Nigeria. They might not make all the profit, but they're very important, for our economy. And we know how restricted they are and how heavily regulated they are. What do you think is, what can the banks do differently, or what can a bank do differently, to not maybe like level, not exactly level, be on a level playing ground, but at least improve value, capture more value, like their regulators and their other counterparts?
Yeah, that's actually a very great question. I think we mentioned that somebody has to build infrastructure. Otherwise, we will not have a society. So it's not just making money or capturing value that will drive everything. Somebody has to invest. But the key thing here is that a bank can still be at that center of the curve, and at the same time, be at the edge of the curve. There is another plot I did not show here, where I said that actually, this particular one is, that was before, that was phase one. Fortunately, I didn't show the phase two. But if you check I think our last week section on scaling and marginal cost, I think it should be in one of the sections in Tekedia. Just check it and it should be there. I think I have the second phase of that plot. So what the bank could do here is what we call the double play strategy. And that's actually what GT Bank has done. Guarantee Trust Bank is a bank in Nigeria. It's at the center, but it also built a solution called GT Pay, which is at the edge. So by having that GT Pay, it has positioned itself that it does what it has to do as a regulated entity, make sure that the banking system stays, but also captures a very huge amount of value in that process through the GT Pay. So it doesn't mean that you just have to be here and then you can't do anything. Look at what Goldman Sachs is doing today, because Goldman Sachs has this great heritage. Everyone likes the brand. It's one of the top in terms of banking in the world. But it turns out that if you look at the pure business, Goldman Sachs has not really made people rich in terms of the market appreciation over the last few years. Alipay, which was a unit of Alibaba, could buy Goldman Sachs and still have change before he ran into trouble with China over the last few weeks. So my point is, Goldman Sachs said, we cannot just be at the center. So what does he do now? Goldman Sachs now wants to be at the edges. So if you have an iPhone, the iPhone Apple Credit now is offered by Goldman Sachs. And if you use this class treasury, Stripe treasury is like PayPal, is powered by Goldman Sachs. So those things that Goldman Sachs ran away from many, many years ago, focusing at the center, Goldman Sachs is now trying to get at the edges. And because at the end of the day, if you stay at these edges, no matter what happens, people will make transactions and you're going to take your own commission and make your own money. But if you just stay at the middle, you have to wait for IPOs to come. Talking about Goldman, you have to wait for all these big deals to come. But if the big deals are not coming, the deals are running. So you can use the double play strategy. You do your banking, you are known for banking. You can still run other things on top of that in order to make sure that you are capturing the value by the side of that curve. So that was the way I think I mentioned, I just explained it. And that is also the way, from my own angle, what some of the banks in US, what they're doing. JP Morgan Chase has a Silicon Valley unit. What that Silicon Valley unit does is to create typical products that the technology companies create. I think is that one of their cars is JP Chase Sapphire, something like that. That Chase Sapphire is competing very, very well with American Express Black Card, something like that. Black Card is this card that you can enter any part of the lounge in the airports and other things, and it's very prestigious. So that's a product innovation that if you have that particular credit card, when you go to an airport in Abuja or Lagos, maybe you could enter into the airport lounges and you don't have to queue with people and just, so a bank, okay, let me give you a good example. Our helicopter business, Uber for helicopter, Vertifly, we're launching it in the next few days. And one of the most exciting aspect of what is happening is that some banks in Nigeria have their high net worth individuals offering that as a service. So if you have a wife, you have a husband, and you have network, your bank can make it possible that if you move around the Nigeria, helicopter can fly you. You know what? That is now more playing banking now. That means you are playing at the edges. And that playing at the edges, you can attract more leverages, and then you can do more things. So, Emmanuel, I don't know if I explain it to large extent, but I will ask the team, if you write them, they will send you where I have that phase 2. If you watch that video, I think it will explain it very, very well. Any bank can do that. In short, some banks in Nigeria have already done that. I know that GT Bank is there. It has moved from just at the edge, moved from the center now at the edge.
Thank you very much, Prof. I just think that, data will be a problem because they have siloed data, but that's fine. I think I understand perfectly the explanation that you have given. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I think that was also the concluding part where I say that at the end of the day, it's coming back to what Pythagoras said, that the world is nothing but numbers, and number is really data. If you do not have the data, you can't even make that transition into that 2021 opportunity that we are expecting. The most critical point here is that most times companies are looking for, let's build this, let's harvest this, let's bring in this expert from all over the world. Really, the most important thing really, do you really even have the data to make this thing happen? And that is the most fundamental challenge, not just for banks, not just for companies, but also for a nation like Nigeria, for instance. If Nigeria had data today, its policy making would change. There's something they did in America over the last few months. They gave people $1,200 because they actually knew where the people were. Within less than, the Congress approved it, within less than 48 hours, some people saw money in their bank account. And within 2 weeks, they were able to give 1,200 to those that qualified across America. Within 2 weeks. But now, if Nigeria needs to do that, does it happen? If Kenya wants to do that, if Ethiopia wants to do that, if Brazil wants to do that, can they do that? So if you don't have that data, the same problem countries are having is the same thing businesses are having. And that is why these startups seem to be doing better, because they are built from scratch as data companies. And because they are data companies, they have actually used that data in order to unlock more value than the traditional bank. You use that Wema Bank, started in 1943 or 1945. And then you see a face stack, which can actually have all the data it wants because it just started. It can make use of that data very well, better than what maybe Wema Bank can do. And that will create a very huge opportunity for it. You go to the automobile industry. Like I stated, that Tesla is a software company. That Tesla was able to do that because it started at a time when it has looked at what the software companies do. You pay for a license in order to keep the license, to keep using that product legally. If you don't pay for that license or don't renew it, you're using it illegally. And that's what Tesla does. If you buy a Tesla car from somebody, you're not going to get a license from the software license. So these are business models. And in our course in week 2 or 3, I stated that the most important aspect of 21st century business is actually business model. That supply is unbounded and unconstrained. There are so many products and services in the market. But the most important thing is the business model somebody's using. I gave an example there that when Steve Ballmer was running Microsoft, the market capitalization of Microsoft was around $300 billion. He ran it like that for nearly more than 10 years. But when Satya came as a Microsoft CEO, he changed the business model using the same products and services. There was no new product. There was no new service. He just changed the business model, and in less than 5 years, that 300 billion became 1.2 trillion. What has happened? What has happened is that he used business model to now improve the efficiency in the utilization of factors of production, thereby unlocking more opportunity in Microsoft, even on the same products and services. So at the end of the day, hiring a CEO is nothing but hiring a new business model. It's about putting a new business model, because that's really the decision the CEOs make. It's not really about the products. Of course, the products drive the business model, but you can have the great products. If somebody cannot run a good business model, cannot. Let me give you two examples, as I noted in that class note. That when this man came, he said, anywhere there is platform, I don't care whether it belongs to Facebook or belong to IBM or belong to Apple or Google, there will be a Microsoft product in it. He took Microsoft Office into Google platform. He took it into Apple. But his predecessor said, no, I will not even allow my children to use Google search. They have to use Bing. If that would make them fail in class, I don't care. Microsoft product will not get into Android. Microsoft product will not get into iOS. But the new man came and said, how can you? Apple has 1.something billion users every day. People that bought iPhone. I would like my product to be there. Out of those 1 billion, maybe 200 million or so will use us. That's a lot of money for us. I don't care whether it's called Apple or not. All I want Microsoft to make sales. That business model, he did it. I know what? Microsoft sales went up. So what I'm saying here is a business model is very critical. And that is really what we pay the CEOs for. It's not just about creating products and services. It's actually the playbook that you use. So I will ask you to go to week 2 or 3 if you are a member and just check that slide. I think it has a lot of insight on it. And I also want to make sure here and tell our members, please, you know that we are already migrating to the new portal. The new members that are taking the Tekedia Advanced Diploma Program, they're already getting into the new portal, which is a dedicated portal. So we will make sure that all our subsequent courses and programs are going to be in the new portal. So we're no more using tekedia.com, rather we're using school.tekedia.com if you want to pay attention. So we have more questions, and so that we can round up, and I want us to round up in the next 6 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Oh, so many questions. So I think, Emanuela, we've answered your question, correct?
Perfectly so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Prof,
Mr.
is it possible
please
to
go ahead.
register for the next class?
No, I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Is it still possible to register for the next class, or has payment closed?
No, you can register, please. Just, yeah, you can register. You can still register too. The class is actually starting in February, so we are still registering. So let me just type the link for you. It's school.tekedia.com. That's the dedicated link. We are still doing registration till February. Okay, so I just type it here. Mr.
Thank you.
Faculty, please go ahead and Mr. George, have you finished speaking? Or do you still have questions?
I'm through, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I just shared the link here. Go ahead. Okay, Mr. Derin, please go ahead. Then after that, Mr. Lade. We have 2 hours for this, so it remains actually 20 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you, Prof. I just wanted to chip in 1 or 2 things into the last question, so especially with respect to banks. One of the, in management consulting, and somebody asked a question earlier about business and management consulting and how we are prone to disruption. So one of the things that banks are doing, and which management consultants are helping them to bring to life in reimagining their business model, is to look beyond the value chain, look beyond banking, look into the value chain. So for a Nigerian beauties, for example, who has been a big time customer of First Bank for many years, First Bank, if First Bank wants to continue to be relevant to the business of Nigerian beauties in the digital economy, then First Bank must consider the value chain of Nigerian beauties from the beginning till the end. How can a First Bank enable the activities that will help Nigerian beauties to run efficiently? And everything, every participant, every stakeholder from the beginning of that value chain to the end now form an ecosystem wherein all of their operations, all of their processes are integrated together, possibly via APIs, so that possibly what will normally take, say, maybe 2 days or 3 days, possibly can be enabled and be completed in a matter of, say, 2 hours. And we've done this a little bit in my own working life for Submailer, where what used to take order to delivery that used to take some 2 hours was reduced to 6 hours. So just relooking at the value chain, I think that is something that banks should look at a lot, because it's working and they are getting high performance. Thank you very much, Prof.
Okay, thank you so much, faculty. And school, most of us already know Mr. Derry is our faculty for innovation. In short, there is a new course, design thinking. I must confess that it's amazing. It's because we've been talking about this innovation, and members, especially the young ones, they're always the ones causing confusion. They want to know, how do you really create this innovation? How do you move from that, just thinking about it to actually a product? So I went back to him. He had a very great career in SAP, so he worked on these innovative things, and so we're so happy and so honored that you've made all your skills available to a community of people. So thank you so much, sir. So that design thinking, we're running it in the February edition, and it's actually a very, very marvelous course on how do we actually create that innovation that we are talking about. So it goes through a methodological process of that empathy to the time when that products and customers are buying it. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Come on, Prof.
Yeah. So Mr.
Hello. Yes. Good evening, sir. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we do. We do.
Okay, good. I want to make a contribution and also ask a question. So my contribution is with respect to the data that the US have, and we're able to credit everybody in 2 weeks. What Nigeria was trying to emulate at that time of the pandemic was that if you load credit below 500 or at most 500 naira in a day, then you will qualify for palliative, because they will look at it that yes, you fall into the category of those that are really in need. So that was the data that the Nigerian government used. They were trying to use. I say was trying to use because today we have not heard of anybody who received any alert in their bank. But I think they partnered with the telecom company that okay, we should give them the list of subscribers who load just 500 and below daily. That's those that they are going to give palliative. I just wanted to contribute that. Then the question I want to ask is, sir, you wanted to say something?
Go ahead.
Okay, then my question is that the submission that a lot of car manufacturers are moving into Ghana because they have a better infrastructure gives me that curiosity that how can government think like businessmen, whereby we don't lose these opportunities? Because I believe that so many embassies and foreign trade missions have approached the government for business opportunities to see how we ourselves can improve as a nation, as an economy. But I think that that sector of this nation is a bit slow in reacting. So how can government think like business and all the advantages, whether available in the future, can be taken advantage of? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much. And I think let me just comment on that credit through who was loading 500. Actually, that was really the problem with it. I remember I posted on LinkedIn if anyone had received any money or any stimulus package support or that. Actually, the minister reached out that we were actually embarrassing the country. That was the feedback because no one raised his or her hand that he received anything. So because, hey, if you say you received this money, they say they spent on supporting startups, let us know. No one, but government said they have shared the money. So the point is, Nigeria is not the purpose of our conversation here. But the only thing I would say, until Africa can learn to vote people that are not doing well, we cannot improve. All of us have our problems. When it comes to election, our memory will be wiped out and we repeat the same thing. But if there is a mechanism where if you don't do well, another person comes in and he doesn't do well, you vote him out. Before you know, the system will begin to incrementally improve. And if that system begins to incrementally improve, we will have a better society. But where poor performers are rewarded without us asking them that you didn't do well, you can't return the new contract from the Nigerian people, there's just no way things can change. I give an example in my village. I'm from Niger State, I'm from Ovim. In our village, women run the show. There are women that they run the show. Those women are so powerful. At the beginning of any electoral cycle, they'll tell you how the community will vote. You can't believe it. And to say, hey, that the governor did not do well this year. The PDP governor in Niger State, they said they will not vote for the governor. Interestingly, one of the commissioners is actually Ekekwe. It's my cousin. So, you people, the governor, they said the governor didn't do well. That means that Ovim will not vote for your governor. And because Ovim will not vote for governor, that means most likely governor will not fire all of you. You know what? They did not vote for PDP. They said the senator, they didn't do well. They did not. They voted against the opposing parties. But that was just their own limitation, that you have to change party to send a message, but it didn't matter. Nigeria has to get to that position where if you don't do well, you don't have to keep your job. That means that people will now know that they are answerable. But of course, we know the election has to be free and fair before that can happen. But there is just nothing like if somebody doesn't have a phone to load a credit that he's not poor. We are focusing on people that can load below 500. What of those that don't even have phone? So that's why that is not really data. It's just like government is just trying to give an excuse. But let's not get into attacking government here. Then on the business side, what Ghana is doing. Economy of Ghana is smaller than the economy of Lagos. Ghana is a very, very small country when you look at the GDP of Otiosa local governments. If you add it, Apapa and Ikeja, it may be bigger than the whole of GDP of Ghana. But the problem is that Nigerians always enjoy a comparative advantage whenever we talk of population. But when we look at the strategic importance of the nation, Nigeria, we don't really play that game. There is really no reason why anyone should go to set up in Ghana when there is free land in Kaduna, free land in Zamfara, free land in most part of Nigeria. But it comes down to where you can set up that company and you think that you have a responsible government that will take care of you. So Ghana is winning that race today. So there's just nothing you can do about it. Yeah, Ghana is winning that. And but I mean, as far as it's actually Ghana, I don't have any problem. I know many Nigerians that are moving to Ghana. It's not a real issue. If Ghana can actually make it and let it work well, hey, I mean, very soon all of us will have one passport called Africa. So it shouldn't really be very, very bad if that happens. We just hope that a lot of people don't see massive dislocation as a result. So we have the next question here. I think we'll just be rounding up. Mayowa, please go ahead. Mayowa.
Hello. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I almost thought I was able to ask my question. I was on YouTube and I was like, oh, how do I post this question? How do I ask and all of that? So I tried Zoom again and I was able to log on. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prof. And the little I heard, because I
go ahead. Thank you. Good having you here.
Amazing. So the question is, for somebody who wants to play in the fiber optics space, like fiber to home, I know that is maybe relatively new in Nigeria. Most of the internet connection to the homes are wireless. So if you have somebody who wants to play in that space, and we know it's huge investment in infrastructure. So what's the double play one can initiate in that space to capture maximum value? Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So if you look at most likely what some of the US companies are actually doing, like AT&T, or you see that they are using their connection to the end customers, because you're actually the last mile here now. You are the ones connecting everyone to the web. I don't know whether it's legal in the Nigerian constitution But if you are using Netflix, if you log into Netflix from most parts of America, your internet becomes faster than if you are logging into any other website, because Netflix pays them for Netflix services to move faster on their fiber optics than the typical. So that is one. And most of them are also increasingly, to a large extent, they can monetize that data. They could sell you services so that you can connect to the web, but they can also sell the data that you are connecting to the web in anonymized metadata to companies that can show advertisement and things you're following. So there are really so many dimensions they can monetize that, but that depends on the local law. I don't know specifically what the NCC has on that. That's the reason why most of them, you may think that they should have gone bankrupt, but they are actually doing fairly well. I'm talking about companies that are still delivering services through fiber, not the telecommunication wireless one. I think that's the one you're focusing on, the ones that are using fiber to deliver services.
Yes, sir. Fiber. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
for last mile.
Yeah, the last mile. So they of course it depends also the way you price it. I'm not going to price it as the way we do in Nigeria. I'm going to ask people to pay for subscription, and then that subscription I'll cap it. I mean, what I mean by cap it, so that you don't suddenly call a whole village to be using your phone line in the village, and then at the end of the month you pay me the same thing. So I'll tell you, if you use a maximum of, if you use 2 gigabytes for a month, that's it. So the business is actually very, very clear how you can unlock a lot of double play. There are many potential partners that can come to you if you deliver that. If you deliver, let's say, fiber optics to Umuahia today, and somebody, maybe the Netflix wants to reach Umuahia market, Netflix can actually say, I want you to pipe every person connecting through Umuahia a very fast lane for me. They are doing it now, and the US law actually allows that, to a large extent. So you could do that. And then you can also sell that data, metadata, not individual person's data, and to big data arbitrators. So, but I must say that it's a very, very expensive thing because you need to have critical scale before you can enter into this arrangement with these guys, and that's a problem. You need money to build that scale, and most times it's just challenging. The infrastructure companies in Nigeria and Africa, they need resources in order to build the necessary capacities they need, but unfortunately, most of them don't have that capacity to do that. Apple wants to buy movie theaters. I'm told that Apple is thinking of buying a movie theater, AMC in US. Why is Apple buying movie theater? I mean, it may not go ahead because there are so many things people rumor Apple wants to buy. We do believe that Apple wants to make, not Apple, Amazon Prime. Amazon wants to make the Prime very, very good. The Amazon Prime is actually a double play for Amazon, because at the beginning of the year, if Amazon collects $120 from 300 million people, and that's a massive amount of money that it doesn't have to pay bank in any interest to get, then it makes everything practically available. You can use that to do so many things around the world, most parts of the world anyway. Now, if you have high-speed internet service that can serve communities, I promise you that a company like Amazon will have actually pay attention, because they think that also things they can sell people. But the problem is you have to build that first before they can listen to you, and that's always the problem. So ladies and gentlemen, I think that okay, let me just answer. Did you answer your question? I want to know. And somebody can also chip in. There's somebody that has something. But the general thing here is the whole idea of going fiber. We still need it, but also think about what Tesla is doing with wireless and the satellites. I know it may still take time. People are still taking off fiber there in Lagos and Nigeria, in general Africa. Look at what Google is doing with their balloons. We can just wake up one day and see that these satellite systems can reduce their latency and have a very high throughput that laying these cables may not really be the most optimal way. So the US government just gave Tesla about $800 million to supply, to offer broadband services in some rural parts of America. And that's understanding that the future is not just going to be laying cable. So I will ask you, besides laying cable, think about if there could be partnership with these satellite companies, and then all you need to do now is to look for areas you can drop the receivers and then use that to drop the services. Because laying things cannot scale easily, because you have to be digging the ground and dealing with all these politicians and their fees. But if you are going through the air, it's actually faster and easier than doing that. So just think about it. It's a business model that everyone in that business in Africa has to look at, because I do believe that the air will win over the ground. And so it's actually satellites, balloons, they have a better positioning than people that are actually digging the ground. Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much. And does anyone still have anything to add so that we can round up? Emanuela, are you still asking a question, or you just raise your hand?
Oh, sorry, I tried to lower my hand, but I think something is.
Oh,
you've answered my question. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much. I want to wish everyone a great 2021. And from all of us at the Institute, we are so honored that we have all worked together in 2020. It was not necessarily the best of years for most, but we are hoping that 2021 will be for everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for spending this time with us, and do have a wonderful, great weekend continuously. And then I have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Really nice time. Thank you, everyone.
Great weekend.
It's good. Yeah.
Everyone. Yeah, okay. So thank you so much. Great weekend, everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so very much. Thank you. It's been an awesome time, in Tekedia.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. It's good to have everyone around. Nice learning with all of us. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. See you in 2021 and better. Bye. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.